war in the Pacific appearing more likely by the day, U.S. commanders are confronting an uncomfortable truth. General Jacqueline Van Ovost said it without ceremony, quote, "Air refueling is our most stressed capability." The Pacific is vast and unforgiving. There aren't enough tankers to sustain combat operations. The ones that do exist are old, lumbering giants, slow targets that would burn like a star at the touch of a single missile. Losing even one could cripple the entire refueling web and slash America's reach across the region. With no time for a carefully engineered solution, the U.S. has turned into improvisation, converting existing civilian airframes into makeshift refueling platforms. And the aircraft chosen to lead that effort isn't a new stealth tanker or secret prototype. It's something far smaller, faster, and hiding in plain sight. In a conflict with China, every KC-135, 46, and 10 would light up on radar like beacons in a midnight desert. They're massive, slow, and defenseless. A single missile could cripple the entire aerial war machine, grounding fighters, bombers, and surveillance planes across the Pacific. The U.S. Air Force knows this. Behind closed doors, planners are terrified that America's refueling fleet, the backbone of its global reach, is a 20th century relic, sleepwalking into a 21st century war zone. The average KC-135 is 60 years old. The new KC-46, meant to save the day, still battles hardware issues and software faults. So the service is doing something radical. Instead of the lumbering giants that defined the Cold War, engineers and strategists are eyeing aircraft that look more at home in the hangar of a Silicon Valley CEO than a war zone. Business jets, Gulfstreams, Bombardiers, and even converted Embraers are being studied as lightweight aerial refuelers. It sounds absurd until you realize the logic. Smaller jets can fly from short, scattered runways. They can hide in civilian traffic patterns, operate from forward bases, and slip closer to combat zones without becoming giant radar targets. The idea isn't to replace the KC-135 or 46, but to expand the refueling network, creating dozens of agile mini-tankers that feed the fight from every direction, becoming a system of systems. If it works, it could rewrite the logistics of modern combat. If it fails, the U.S. could spend billions chasing a fantasy that leaves its pilots stranded mid-air. At first glance, the appeal is obvious. A business jet tanker costs a fraction of the KC-46 to buy, fly, and maintain. It burns less fuel, needs fewer crew, and can operate from the sort of improvised runways that litter the Pacific. During agile combat employment exercises, the Air Force simulated scenarios where large tankers couldn't get anywhere near the front lines. Enemy radar networks and long-range missiles forced them to orbit hundreds of miles away, limiting how far U.S. fighters could go. Smaller aircraft, flying lower and quieter, might close that gap. They could act as refueling spokes in a layered system, receiving fuel from a big tanker safely in the rear, then darting forward to top up fighters in the contested zone before vanishing again. This concept isn't just a theory. The Israeli aerospace industries already prototyped a G550 refueler years ago. European contractors have proposed similar conversions for decades. But the real momentum began when the Air Force's Next-Generation Air Refueling System, or NGAS, expanded its scope in 2024. Instead of searching for a single monolithic stealth tanker, the study began exploring a family of solutions: stealthy long-range tankers, mid-sized aircraft, and yes, business jet platforms. General John LaMontagne described the venture in blunt terms, quote, "It's all about trade-offs: runway length, fuel delivery at range, and signature management." Business jets fit neatly into that equation. They can use smaller bases in the Philippines, Japan, and Guam. They can disperse faster than any KC-46 squadron. And in peacetime, they could double as surveillance platforms. Critically, they'd also be expendable. Losing one wouldn't cripple a campaign. It would sting, but not bleed the entire fleet dry. But not everything is good news. Their limitations are severe. A KC-46 can offload over 200,000 pounds of fuel. A business jet tanker might manage 1/10 of that in sustained operations, a massive handicap. It means shorter loiter times, more takeoffs, more complexity, and more moving parts in the most fragile segment of aerial warfare. The question is whether they can matter enough to justify the risk. Not everyone's buying it. Analysts warn that the Air Force may be falling into a familiar trap: over-optimizing for survivability at the cost of utility. As one Aviation Week editor put it when talking about the adjacent matter of stealth technology, quote, "You can make a stealthy tanker, but you'll also make a tanker that can't carry much fuel." Stealth doesn't come cheap. Shaping an aircraft's body to hide radar reflections drastically reduces internal volume. Every curve that hides it from sensors steals space from fuel. That's why the Air Force's secretive N-gas stealth tanker concept is reportedly stalled. Even some internal analyses suggest stealth tankers may not be worth their price tag or developmental risk. The same applies to the business jet proposal. They're so small that some analysts consider their cargo capacity almost negligible. There's another issue: tempo. A fleet of small refuelers means a swarm of moving parts, maintenance crews, logistics chains, dispersed fuel bladders, and communication nodes. In peacetime, that's manageable. In combat, it's chaos. A missile strike or cyber attack on a single forward base could ground the entire small tanker network. Critics also argue that the Air Force should focus less on new airframes and more on autonomy. Boeing and the Air Force Research Lab are already testing autonomous refueling systems that could make uncrewed tankers viable within the decade. An AI-controlled drone, or an optionally crewed KC-135 retrofit, could do what a business jet does without risking a human crew. Meanwhile, the private sector is quietly filling the gaps that the Air Force can't. Companies like Maitreya and Omega Air have been flying contractor-owned tankers to refuel U.S. aircraft during training exercises. In 2023, a commercial KDC-10 topped up the U.S. Air Force C-17 in flight for the first time in history. These private tankers hint at a parallel evolution, a semi-privatized hybrid refueling ecosystem, blending military and civilian assets. Some commanders see that as a strength. Others see a logistical nightmare. The clock is ticking. By 2040, most of the KC-135 fleet will be beyond economical repair. The KC-10s are already gone. The KC-46A can't seem to sort out its endless software errors and boom camera distortions, and remains years away from full operational clearance. If war were to start now, the equation would have a significant problem. That's why urgency now defines every meeting at Air Mobility Command. Engineers at Eaton are designing modular refueling booms, pods that can attach to various aircraft, including fighters and drones. Boeing is refining its Cronus autonomy package, enabling aircraft to refuel other aircraft with minimal human input. The Air Force Research Lab is testing man-unmanned teaming, where one crewed tanker controls several smaller autonomous refuelers. The dream is clear: a layered web of refueling assets, each designed for a specific slice of the flight. A stealthy long-range tanker to feed bombers in deep strike missions. A cluster of business jet tankers to sustain forward fighters. Autonomous pods and drones to refit aircraft in the gray zones between. It's elegant in theory and hellishly complex in practice. The logistics alone rival those of a moon mission. Every drop of fuel must be tracked, delivered, and protected under fire. Still, the logic is compelling. Disperse the lifelines, and you disperse the risk. If China's missile network can no longer take down the tanker fleet with a handful of strikes, the entire U.S. aerial operation becomes more resilient. The Pacific becomes a favorable chessboard for American forces. Even the advocates admit the gamble. Small tankers mean smaller payloads, shorter endurance, and higher operational strain. Stealthy ones mean astronomical cost and limited cargo space. Unmanned ones require trust in AI that's still learning how to handle turbulence, let alone combat chaos. What's unfolding goes beyond the quirky idea of using business jets as tankers. It's a philosophical shift that might shape aerial warfare in the near future. For decades, the United States built its air power on predictability. One model, one tanker, one massive system to rule the skies. That era is over. In its place, a fragmented, adaptive nervous system built for war is being constructed. The question is whether it will be ready for deployment if and when the showdown between the two most powerful nations in the world finally happens.